I'd like to call to order this committee of the whole meeting of the town of Saugeen Shores and extend a welcome to everyone in the chambers this evening. Our first order of business is a declaration of pecuniary interest, and I'll remind every member of your responsibility to do so. Undeclared, we have no additions, deletions, or amendments to the agenda, and this evening we have two delegations. The first one is Terry Young. He's the Vice President, Conservation and Corporate Relations, and he's here for an update on the Independent Electrical System Operator. Welcome, Terry.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to be here tonight to give you really just an overview of what we're seeing in the electricity system today, some of the changes that have occurred over the past decade and what we're going to see as we go forward over the next decade. I know that there have been issues raised in a number of areas, and what I'm trying to do tonight is to really give you a sense of some of the information that we have in the system, and really encourage people to go to our website, to go to other resources, to get a sense of some of the things that are going on and some of the changes that are happening in the sector, because there are a lot of changes that are happening in the sector. Over the past decade, we've certainly changed the way we generate electricity. We've changed the way that we consume electricity, and we're going to see more changes over the next decade. So my first slide really just gives a sense of what we, the Independent Electricity System Operator, or IESO, do. We came out of the former Ontario Hydro Organization when it was split up into a number of different entities, and the IESO was created. Essentially, we operate the real-time reliability of the power system. So what we do is we have a control room, and we're monitoring the demand for electricity every minute of every hour of the day. And then every 5 minutes we send out signals indicating what that demand for electricity is. And then we work with generators and large customers, generators like Bruce Power, to arrange for that power to be generated and meet the demands that we're seeing. We also then we plan the system, so we do both short and long-term planning. We forecast what the demands for electricity will be, and then through those plans create opportunities for generators and others to try to meet those demands. We have a very aggressive conservation portfolio, which I'll spend a few minutes on. And then, of course, we spend a lot of time engaging stakeholders and communities, and we do a lot of presentations like this to come out and talk to communities about what's going on in the electricity sector. In terms of some real facts, when you think about the kind of electricity we have available, it's how we measure an installed capacity. When I look at demand for electricity on this graph, you'll see a record for demand for electricity was set 10 years ago this very month, when 1 hour of the day between 4 and 5 o'clock on August 1st, we were consuming over 27,000 megawatts of electricity. To give you a sense of how that has changed, today, or this year, our peak demand for electricity would have been about 22,500 megawatts. So, 4,500 megawatts less than what we had 10 years ago. But if I recall the heat conditions then, they were probably just as hot last week as it was then. So it gives you a sense of, again, how we're using electricity differently, and how people have responded, how businesses and industries have responded to better manage their energy consumption. You can see in this that we're interconnected with New York, with Michigan, with Hydro-Quebec to the east, and Manitoba to the west. And every day we trade electricity. If it's, we have, in Ontario, we've gone from being a net importer of electricity. So a decade ago on that August 1st, 2006 day, I would have probably been on the radio pleading with you to reduce your consumption of electricity, because we would not have had enough to meet the demands on our own. We would have been reliant on our neighbors in order to do that. And it's a big difference a decade later that we are self-sufficient. We're no longer reliant on our neighbors to meet our needs here in Ontario. This is, again, a little bit more detail with respect to the demand for electricity. It gives you a sense of just how much it's been declining. Declining because again, you're seeing this is measured on the wholesale level, and what we're seeing is a lot of generation that's coming up within distribution systems like West Ontario, like Hydro One, so where they're able to help meet their own needs. And you're also seeing the impact of conservation, where people's demand for electricity is declining because of the actions they're taking. In terms of the supply mix, what this does is give you a sense of how we've changed over the last 10 years and the further changes that we expect over the next 10 years. So you can see the big difference between 2005 and 2015 is the lack of coal. In 2005, we had about 25% of our power was being met through coal-fired generation. Last year or 2 years ago, we took the last facilities out of service, and we have a much lower carbon electricity producing sector, and one that no longer contains coal in the mix. We have much more dependence on wind and solar. But what is staying the same in 2015 versus 2005, and what we expect to see continuing contribution 10 years from now, is the reliance on nuclear. So I know that James from Bruce Power was here earlier this year and talked about the deal that had been signed with our organization. And really that deal is foundational in terms of setting a solid supply of electricity for Ontario as we go forward. So and you'll see in this that for the next little while we expect nuclear to continue to play a major part in meeting Ontario's electricity needs. In terms of price, there's, and I did hear from the earlier speaker, this does show you what's happening in price, and there's you can see that prices have climbed, and the reason they've climbed is really to address the needs I talked about earlier. So we're in a situation where we have more supply than we did. We've put tens of thousands of new megawatts into the system so that we do have a reliable power system. We have a much cleaner power system than we did a decade ago, and that's where you can see the costs that are incurring to do that. There was a discussion around global adjustment. This slide is hard to read. It's a lot of data in it, but it is available on our website. And what it does show you is that in terms of the components of the global adjustment, and the global adjustment is really it's kind of it covers the difference. We have an hourly price that we use to dispatch generation, and then we have contracts that we've signed, contracts like the one that we just recently signed with Bruce Power. And there's a difference between that contract price and what the hourly price is, and that difference is covered through the global adjustment. So you'll see in the blue there that some of the costs that are being incurred in the global adjustment are costs covered through non-OPG nuclear and natural gas. And so that makes up a chunk of what you're seeing in the global adjustment. We also see costs associated with OPG production, again, where it's that difference between what the regulated price is that OPG is paid and what the hourly price is. So these are all of the components. The only other thing that I would add is that if you look at other jurisdictions, they indeed have the same kind of similar charges that we see in Ontario. It's under a different name, and you'll see jurisdictions where they'll have an energy charge and a capacity charge. So the capacity charge is really associated with putting that infrastructure in place. So building those generating stations, and then the energy costs are what you pay to run those facilities and buy that power. You can look at the global adjustment in the same consideration. These are the costs associated with the contracts that we've put in place, the tens of thousands of megawatts that we have built since 2006. The last couple of slides I want to leave you with is really around slides about what people can do to better manage their energy costs and to mitigate some of the pressures that they're seeing. And this is really around conservation. It's the portfolio that I look after in the IESO. And we have had tremendous success over the last decade in terms of moving forward in the conservation programs. And we have a new framework that we're looking at designed to achieve another 8.7 terawatt hours of electricity reduction over between now and 2020. We're working with local distribution companies like West Aereo, who have their programs and run province-wide programs to help customers save. And it's customers on everybody from the residential customer to the very, very large industrial customer that's connected to a transmission line. So we have a number of products that we offer through our Same-Out Energy programs, coupons, products around home devices, HVAC systems or lighting, which also businesses and industry can take advantages of well. So again, this really just outlines some of the programs that are available for homes, some of the programs that are available for business. When I look forward over the next little while, what you see is a situation that we expect to maintain that reliable supply of power for some time, that we do have an adequate supply of power. We have a very diverse supply mix. We're not relying on one technology in Ontario. We have a combination of renewables. We have a combination of nuclear. We have a combination of natural gas and hydro. And we also have some really good contributions from the customer themselves, who is reducing their demands. And by reducing your demand for electricity, I think you're doing two things. You're reducing your costs that you pay today, and you're reducing costs that you'll pay tomorrow, because what you are doing is reducing the need for us to build expensive infrastructure. So it's cheaper to conserve. A kilowatt hour in conservation is under 4 cents a kilowatt hour, which is the cheapest resource there is. And these are programs that I would encourage you to investigate, and if you can, to take advantage of. And then in terms of where we're going, we do have, as I said, a diverse supply mix. We have the agreement that we signed with Bruce Power late last year, which, as I said, it provides a real foundation for the supply going forward. And then I would just end with encouraging everyone to visit our website, ieso.ca. All of the information, there is plenty of information to help you, whether it's better understand the system, better understand your bill, connect you with your local distribution company, or connect you with a conservation program that will help work for you. Please do answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Questions? Councillor Dave Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, thank you, Mr. Young, for your presentation. We appreciate you coming here unsolicited, I might add. We didn't ask IESO to come here, but certainly we've heard from our generator partners, and we appreciate hearing from the IESO as well. With the conservation piece, and you said that's your primary focus, the earlier speaker touched on it a little bit, and I think people are getting frustrated out there because a lot of people aren't conserving. They're taking advantage of incentive programs. They're upgrading their heating systems. They're using energy efficient lighting systems, and their overall consumption is going down. And then we hear things on the news like, because we didn't use enough electricity last year, we have to raise the price. So in real terms, a lot of people are seeing, I used less electricity this year than I did last year, but it's still costing me more. And how do you really incentivize people to go the next step and go the extra mile when what they're seeing is, I save, and they just raise the price to compensate to keep their income or the amount of money the same. And I know it's a complicated formula with a global adjustment and all that, but this is how people are seeing it. And how do we explain to people that it's a good idea to conserve?
So I think the bottom line for me is that if you're conserving, if you go to your house and you put in more energy efficient lighting, if you put in a more energy efficient motor, if you're electrically heated and you've done insulation and you've done a lot in terms of whether it's your shower flow or your pipe wrap or whatever, if you've done things and I haven't, your electricity bill is going to be less than mine. That's the bottom line. You're using less electricity than I am, all things being equal, and your bill will be less. With respect to the we conserved or we used less over the winter period, and therefore we're paying more. I think really what that was is that if you think about the costs that we have, and we have committed costs that essentially we've set up a payment schedule for, and it's based on the amount of electricity that's used, that payment structure is going to change over time depending on the volume. And so if the volume's lower, then you may not have paid as much back. But if the volume's higher, it may be that the next time the board comes out, that the consumption's up and there was more payment made. So it is a very complicated story. To me, I kind of try to remember the bottom line. The bottom line for me is if I'm doing something, my energy consumption is going to be lower than someone else's, and I'm going to pay less.
Well, I can kind of see that on general terms, but it almost feels like you're chasing your tail a little bit. You're conserving, and I might add, I don't know where you live, but I know a lot of the people in this municipality are customers of West Stereo Power. And I'm a customer of Hydro One because I live in a rural area. So I see my delivery charges going up at a much higher rate than the local distribution. So if you're a town or a city dweller, then I might say that yours would be less than mine in the overall, because I'm seeing that go up as well. But it's just people are getting frustrated. People are going the extra mile. People are doing all these things, and they're still seeing the prices go up. And I know it's not the IESO. I like to blame it on the policymakers as opposed to the job that you guys are doing, because I used to work with you guys as well at one point in time. So I understand you're balancing the system, but people are getting frustrated, and people feel like they're just spinning their wheels on these types of things. And you guys got to tell a better story out there.
Thank you. I do appreciate what you're saying, and I guess again, it's part of why I'm here today, is just to try to get some understanding of why our costs are what they are, and in particular, when you look at what's happening in other jurisdictions, and as they remove coal from their system, they will be paying costs that we've paid. So there will be as you start to look forward, I think you're going to see something. You'll start to see some differences, but I truly do appreciate what you're saying.
Deputy Mayor Charbonneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks for the presentation, Terry. I had a very similar question to what Dave had, but I just wanted to drill down on it just a little bit more with regard to the you'd mentioned at one point there, if we all start to conserve, that eventually we have to build less infrastructure and you start to save money that way. But at what point does that kick in, Terry? I mean, because in 2010, over the last 5 years, we've obviously conserved a fair bit, if you believe that that's what's happened, as opposed to the other story that it's the fact that the high energy prices is driving manufacturing out of the province. But let's say that's not the case, and let's say it is conservation, and we're conserving all this electricity. Like, at what stage do we start to experience the reduction in infrastructure that is going to save us all this money?
Well, I think you will start to see that. I mean, if you look at what's happening on the demand side, and I'll give you an example in the August 1st, 2006 date that I put up there. Typically, a decade ago, we would have seen demand for electricity in the morning being 14,000 megawatts. And as the day got hotter, you would see the demand start to climb. And it would be this continuous climb upward until it hit that peak at around 5 o'clock. And it would last for a couple of hours, and it would slowly start to drop off. Now, when you look at what the demand is, and you start to see this 22.5, if you will, that we had this year, you're seeing that the behavior of customers is different, and customers, have incentives to use less, particularly in the large customers at peak times of the year. And so what they will do is they will reduce their electricity consumption. So you get to a point around noon where you're at that 22,000 megawatts, and you're not climbing. And you're not climbing because, customers have responded. So as we start to look at longer-term planning now, we are starting to build in the capability of the customer to actually respond. We introduced last year an auction for demand resources where customers could actually bid in and be paid to provide to meet that demand by not using electricity. And it's, when you think about the price, as I said, in conservation at 4 cents a kilowatt hour, it still is the most cost-effective resource. So it's going to take time. This thing doesn't change overnight. I've been in the industry now for over 30 years, and what I can tell you is I can look back 10 years ago where we had a shortage of electricity. 10 years before that, we had a surplus of electricity. And we were taking many of the actions that you see today. We were exporting a lot of our power. The difference between then and 20 years ago is that it was not transparent. And you did not see it at the prices that we were paying or being paid for electricity, or see what the demand was, or any of that stuff. And so we have really tried to improve the transparency, because we believe that if a customer is informed, they can make better choices about their own energy consumption.
Thank you. Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If you could perhaps just bounce back one slide. I think it's, no, one more. Okay, this chart, how does it match up against the earlier chart, which was about supply capacity, and you had nuclear had shrunk down to 20%, and wind and solar, the numbers had jumped. And then when I look at a chart like this, I'm assuming that the colors are matching. So the bottom bar would be nuclear,
Yeah.
and then hydro, and then I believe it would be solar and then wind.
Yeah.
So solar being blue.
So how this matches is I think this is this the installed capacity or the energy?
The first chart was installed capacity.
And this is the energy. So
Well,
this is the outputs.
Okay, so, and when I look at this, it says an assessment of reliability and so it's appearing as though, we've got all this capacity with solar and wind, but then when you look at the reliability and operability, it's still all about nuclear and hydro.
Oh, absolutely.
Now,
Nuclear
what-
is still
and-
the workhorse of the system.
Okay, and what's missing from all of this is anything really about pricing. And I happened to be representing the mayor at something last Thursday, and there was a presentation at the function from a solar producer who suggested that the government has perhaps started to swing in the other direction, and contract values are becoming more realistic with solar. Do you see all of that now sort of rebounding to a more realistic kind of thing? Because I suspect that some of what's driven this global adjustment has been the really unrealistic contracts that were signed associated with wind and solar over the last few years.
Certainly, if you look at the price of solar, and it has come drastically down from the price that was there, 5 years ago even. And as you look at some of the contracts, so we, had a set of renewable contracts that were provided in the last, I guess it was eight months or so, and what we saw was lower costs, lower contract prices associated with the technology and its development. The price of solar has come down.
And how is that going to play into, because you've got an 18-month outlook here that still, solar and wind aren't a big player in here, but they're big dollars in the mix. So how do you see that playing out now as things seem to be heading in a different direction with solar and wind?
So if you go back to even this one, you get a sense of where the costs are for the global adjustment. And if you look at the bottom one, which is associated with the OPG regulated nuclear and hydro, and you look at the blue one that's associated with nuclear, the non-OPG nuclear, and the natural gas, you can see that the costs of the global adjustment, the biggest contributors to global adjustment, are those sources of energy.
Councillor Minaj.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question would be around the declining nuclear. If we're going to take Pickering nuclear power plant offline completely, and we've been storing money to put that to bed, so to speak, there'll be less money required to keep Pickering operating. So will that not show something on the bottom line difference if we don't need the power and we're closing down an 8-unit nuclear station? Would we not expect to see net savings after a period of time there? That'd be question one. And question two is, we're continually being told or being asked to believe that solar and wind is the answer to the world's needs. And yet, the hidden message behind the story is, for every installed megawatt of solar or wind, we have to buy another megawatt of gas power. And gas power is a polluter. So why don't we, talking about being transparent, why don't we actually say that? That would be question two. Thank you.
So if I can answer question two first, I wouldn't agree with that. I wouldn't agree that for every megawatt of solar and wind that we put in place, that we buy a megawatt of natural gas. The point I would ask you to remember about Ontario's supply mix is the attractiveness of it is how diverse it is. So we're not totally reliant on one system. We're not our one supply. We have a good mixture of nuclear, which, as I mentioned, continues to be the workhorse. We have and will continue to be for some time, given some of the deals that have just been signed. But Ontario and pretty much all jurisdictions around us are now starting to look at wind and solar and seeing whether there can be increasing contributions that can make to its electricity, meeting its electricity needs. Both of those supply forms of supply are different. I mean, certainly in solar, on a day like today, a nice sunny day, you would get a lot of solar output, and when we have peaks in the summer, solar is doing a lot to meet those peaks. Winter is or wind, pardon me, not so much on some summer days, but on a windy day like yesterday, you'll get more output from wind. So, but it's that. The appeal, I think, for Ontario is the diversity in its supply, and we're not, we're not just relying on one mix. So, so that's And your first question again, I'm sorry, I got so caught up in the second question. Oh, about Pickering, yeah. Well, again, it's to the point earlier made that as you start to see a reduced demand and that you don't need to build or keep in place facilities to meet that demand because the demand's not there, then yes, you should start to see that reflected in costs.
Councillor Rich.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for your presentation, Terry. I'm just going to hit on one small point because the Deputy Mayor mentioned about high electricity costs causing manufacturing to leave the province, and you never really did address that. When you were talking about peak demand this year as compared to peak demand in 2006, you really gave the impression that it all had to do with reduced consumption because of conservation. So just clarify for me that. Would you not say that lower electricity prices would actually help keep manufacturing here, and that there has been a reduction in manufacturing that's probably causing the reduction in consumption?
Well, I think certainly I would agree with you. Well, first of all, I would not say conservation has caused all of that peak demand to decline, and if I gave that impression, I'm sorry. No, there is a number of reasons why demand's not what it was today. Conservation's one, embedded generation is another, and certainly I think when you think about the economy in 2007, 2008, and some of the high electricity intensive industries, mining, that did shut down, and that demand hasn't returned. Certainly the economy has recovered, but we're not seeing that high intensive industry, if you will, that reliance on electricity that was there. With respect to the manufacturing industry, though, I would tell you that that is what we are targeting in terms of our conservation programs as well, is we're trying to get manufacturers to be more efficient, to look at some of their processes and offering incentives to get them to do that so that they can reduce their electricity costs. And we work with Westario, we work with Hydro One, we work with the 68 other LDCs to try to get out and visit their customers. And this is, I guess, the point that I always find, and I do appreciate the frustration that's here, but I also ask people to look and see what measures are available to help you better manage your electricity costs. And for residents, for manufacturers, for businesses, for industries, there are quite a number of programs that are available to help do that.
No other? Well, I want to thank you. First of all, I think you hear a very good presentation, and I think there's one kind of a common theme here, and I hear it, and I know it's a frustrating issue for you because you don't really have a lot to do with setting the rates, but it is rates that we hear about often, and I thank you for coming here. But I want to end on a good note. I want to thank you, and please pass along your thanks to the board for entering into the agreements with Bruce Power in December. You extended the life of those units until 2064, and they're a very important component of the provincial supply, both economically and a great thing for our community. So thanks very much, Terry.
I will do that. And again, I appreciate the opportunity to be here and to continue the discussion. Thanks. You very much.
Our next deputation is Anne-Marie Collins. She's with the Bruce County Museum and Cultural Center, and she's here to tell us about what the county is planning for the 150th celebration. Welcome, Anne-Marie.
Thank you.
I know you have the chair of the committee with you, too. Maybe you could introduce.
I do. Ron and I are actually working on the committee together. We're leading a group of employees from across the county. It's been a really great opportunity to get to meet some staff members. Being at the museum, we're, 15 staff, but you think of the county, there's hundreds of staff, and there are a lot of them that I don't know, and have really enjoyed getting to know a number of them through this committee. So in 2017, there is a great sesquicentennial going on. We know Canada is turning 150, and at the same time, Bruce County is turning 150. We could have done it 10 years earlier had our forefathers not fought over the county town, but they decided to take a long time to really make sure they chose the right location for it. So here we are with the same birthday as Canada, although it is a few months earlier than Canada's. So in my normal life, I'm the archivist at the Bruce County Museum. I have a strong historical hold on Bruce County's history, and we're moving forward with plans for our 150th. So we've created a logo. You can see in the center of the screen, that's the logo for our series of events. And we do have a budget approved by County Council. So the events we're planning are quite extensive. We're going to kick off with a New Year's Eve party here in Saugeen Shores at the Bruce County Museum and Cultural Center. We're going to have busing from across the county. It was really nice to have a venue that was already licensed within our county facilities to host the event at. We are going to have a band as well as a DJ because we're such a large facility. We want to make sure there's entertainment in all corners of the venue, as well as a photo booth. The event will take place from 8 until 1, so we're not going to do a sit-down dinner, but we will have hors d'oeuvres all night, party favors, hats, noisemakers, all the goodies for a New Year's party, as well as champagne at midnight with a glass, take-home glass with our logo on it. Following that, we're going to jump right into some curling fun spiels. They'll be held in Ripley, Chesley, and Wyerton, and just confirming those dates on that, we want to make sure we're not overlapping with any of the other events we want to do. I'm trying to confirm some dates. Our tartan day, so I didn't realize that there was a tartan day. Yes, we have a tartan. We are one of the few counties that has a tartan in Canada. We might be the only one. When we got our tartan in 1964, we were the only county with a tartan. So we are going to do a complete social media and media campaign encouraging people to wear a tartan on April 6th. And there is still Bruce County tartan available for sale. I bought my scarf just last week at the museum. We have scarves, we have ties, or if you want to, sew something, we actually have tartan to buy. And it comes in large and small print. Who knew? We're working on a military reunion dinner. So June 3rd, 1916, the 160th Bruce Battalion marched from Walkerton to Chesley. So when I saw that that date was available, and a Saturday, I said we have to do something to honor our military, and that is the perfect day to do it. And the Chesley Community Center was available. So that was where they ended up at the end of their march. At that time, they put on a great series of, the men were in tripod, they were crazy. They were having a really good time once they got there. And they received their colors from Premier Hearst, who was a Bruce Countyite. He was from Tara. So that was really important to them that they received their flags from Premier Hearst. So we're still working on that. We are contacting the Legions and getting people like Clarence Kiefer involved and those types of contacts. So if anyone has any other contacts, military related, please, I'm happy to accept that information. We're working on a summer event, so we haven't quite figured out the details on this one. We're still brainstorming, but what we'd really like to do is partner with an existing summer event, because there are so many great events across the county. We don't want to try and take over someone's weekend, or we just want to partner with an event and really showcase Bruce County's 150th and celebrate. So if anyone here has, again, any suggestions for any partnerships, that would be wonderful. For Doors Open, so there are a few communities across Bruce County that celebrate Doors Open, and it's a province-wide initiative. It's led by the Ontario Heritage Trust, and from April to October, each municipality picks their dates, and communities open the doors to some of Ontario's most intriguing and charming heritage sites, and admission is free. So I am looking we are looking for the municipality's assistance in securing 3 to 4 heritage venues for Doors Open within the municipality, and assistance with finding volunteers to man those venues while the doors are open. So we haven't yet chosen that date because we're trying to find a date, again, that doesn't have too many overlapping other events. But that's something we're moving forward, and we have to have a date by December because that's when we have to pay our money to Doors Open to participate in the province-wide initiative. So we are also planning outreach to all county municipalities. So we are designing an outreach trailer and website to showcase the explorers of Bruce County, both historic and current. And this trailer will attend festivals and events across Bruce County, and the website and the trailer will showcase just a variety of people. I've been going through our archive and pulling some interesting pictures and trying to find quotes about the people. My favorite so far is that of J.H. Scougal, who was the town clerk in Kincardine. And the quote I found about him was that he never did a shabby thing in his life. And that was out of his obituary. So I think he was a pretty neat guy and a wonderful photographer as well. So we're also designing a website to share information about all the events. So although I don't have all the information here tonight because we haven't put everything in place, that information will be updated on the website as it's being implemented. We're also planning a number of legacy initiatives. So we would like to gift to each Bruce County municipality a sugar maple tree with a plaque commemorating the 150th celebrations. So we are asking for some assistance from the municipality to plant the tree. And then we'll host a small tree planting ceremony. The municipality can choose where each tree goes. And we I'm hoping, my dream, is to actually do the plantings all on the same day across the county. I think it would be really neat to do that. And we were looking sometime around Earth Day in April. So we're looking to plant 150 trees, and that's only getting us up to, maybe 10 trees. We do the municipalities and First Nations communities. So the other trees, a few of them may be planted on county lands, but the rest will be offered to county residents at a reduced price through the Tall Tree Initiative. And we're working with the Tall Tree Initiative, who that initiative started in Saugeen Shores, and to make those trees available across the county. And as that partnership unfolds, more information will be shared on our website about that as well. We're also doing an art installation to be placed at a county facility. The RFP is being released this week for artists to submit proposals. We've left it quite wide open. We don't know if it'll be an indoor-outdoor installation, but we want something to commemorate the 150th that will be long-lasting. We're also doing a time capsule, and we are requesting an item from each municipality to place in the time capsule, and those will be opened in 50 years during our 200th anniversary. So we do need the help of the lower tier municipalities. We are asking you to accept and care for a tree on behalf of the people of your municipality. We're asking you to provide an item for the time capsule, assist with the Doors Open campaign, and first and foremost, really celebrate with us. We promote the activities we're planning. If you're planning activities, we want to do cross promotions and work together just to really celebrate the 150th in a big way. So I thank you for your time and look forward to the next 16 months.
Thanks very much, Anne-Marie. Has anybody any questions for Anne-Marie? Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I have a comment and then an offer of help. I just wanted to take advantage of you being here to just say how much the Heritage Committee, the Municipal Heritage Committee, appreciates all the support from everybody in your department. You help us with our plaque program. You help us with so many things that we do. So thank you publicly for that. I think you can count on the Heritage Committee because we already mentioned it ever so briefly at one of our recent meetings about the Doors Open idea. We also talked about Tartan Day. I didn't realize it was going to be so early. We thought it might have been in September, but we kind of kicked around that too. And so I think you can count on us to definitely work towards a couple of properties for the Doors Open campaign. But thank you for all the work you do for us with the Heritage Committee.
Councillor Mazin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, Anne-Marie, I just want to say you guys do a great job. I've been very involved with your archives through my work with the schools. And as chairman of the Saugeen Shores 150th Committee, I hope that we can partner up and do many activities together, promote each other, and have a great weekend. I've been in several places in Chesley where Mr. Oswald frequents, and the pictures of the battalion marching are very prominent there. So I look forward to seeing that, and anything that we can do on the 150th Committee to help, please let us know.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Councillor Dave Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was waiting through your presentation to hear an actual date. Like, I know Canada's going to be July 1st. Is there an actual date for you?
January 1st. That's
January
why we're
1st.
having the New Year's party.
Oh, I see.
So
okay.
we can.
So that's the date that we became a county.
Yes.
All right. Terrific. I'm looking forward to that.
We split from here on.
All right. Cool. And I have a first contribution for your time capsule. This is a police chief medallion from Chief Dan Rivet, and as a member of the Saugeen Shores Police Service Board. There you go. That's 2015's, but it's a medallion from the chief.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much. Just a question, Anne-Marie, and you mentioned if anybody has any suggestions about that, how would they contact, what would be the easiest way to contact the committee?
We have, through our website.
Okay.
So our website is brucecounty150.ca, and there are links with our contact information on there.
Very good. I think I know how to contact it. I just want to make sure.
I mean, a lot of you have my email, and you can
Yes.
email me directly.
at the museum, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
well, we look forward to
I get all those emails too.
we look forward to a great year and a great kickoff on January the 1st.
Yeah,
and,
it's going to be great.
Yeah, I want to thank you and thank the chair, Mr. Oswald. Again, I sat with him in County Council many years and looked up to him with a great deal of respect, and I know you do a great job, Ron.
Yeah. Was there anything that I missed, Ron?
Thank you very much, Mayor Mike and council, staff, and media. This lady has done a tremendous job, and we're going to have a hell of a party. Some of us mightn't be around for the 200th one, you know, but we have a lot of history. I can remember I sat on Elderslie Council in the 60s, and there was 30-some municipalities. Then with amalgamation in 98, we were down to 8 municipalities. But there's a lot of history in 150 years in Bruce County, and we should recognize those people that come out here. My great-grandfather and grandmother come out from Scotland in 1860, and 2 miles north of Chesley, 100 acres there, and Dad says it was the worst farm in Elderslie. There was 2 creeks run through it, but they made a living, raised a family, and my grandfather was in Elderslie Council. My dad was in Elderslie Council. I was on in the 60s. But every municipality has a lot of history in 150 years, and it's time to show that history in each of our communities. And I know Bruce County always liked a party, but this is going to be a ripper. So thanks again, Mr. Mayor and Council, and I think this is my 12th meeting. I thought there would just be 2 or 3 meetings on this committee, you know.
We've kept you very busy, Ron.
We're working hard, so thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks, Ron. That's what happens when you volunteer. Thanks very much. The next item on the agenda then is an Environmental Services and Transportation Staff report, and it has to do with traffic signal installation on Goderich and Devonshire, and Len Perdue will present, our acting director.
As part of the new development being constructed on the extension of Devonshire Street to the west of Goderich Street, there is a requirement for traffic signals at this intersection. The developer contracted their engineer to prepare the plans. Staff have received and reviewed the plans. The plans meet the town standards and are ready to be submitted to the Ministry of Transportation for their approval. All traffic signals on Ministry roads require approval from the Ministry of Transportation. You'll see attached is Figure 1 that shows proposed configuration of this intersection. With many upgrades or changes to the connecting link, the MTO must be consulted and provide approval prior to making changes to signalize intersections or adding new ones. At this time, staff requires direction from Council to proceed with the submission of the plans to the Ministry. As for financial impact, there is no financial impact at this time. We are only submitting the plans to the Ministry of Transportation for their approval, so that when the project is approved, the town will not have to wait for approvals. They will be ready to construct it. When the project does go to construction, it will be funded as follows: $58,000 from direct developer contributions, $29,000 from development charges, and $29,000 from taxes.
Thanks very much, Len. Then the recommendation is that Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores approves the submission of the traffic signal plan for the proposed Goderich Street at Devonshire Street traffic light installation to the Ministry of Transportation. Questions, comments? Councillor Minaj.
I have a few, and my major concern is that Devonshire East is not receiving equal treatment in this plan. The width of the road and the lack of a left turn lane there. Devonshire East is connected to Wellington Street, as you know, and I've made a pitch to staff to consider Wellington Street as an arterial road in lieu of an arterial road that's trapped at the moment. So that would take an official plan amendment. So I'm working on that behind the scenes. But Devonshire east of Highway 21, Goderich Street, then that's an interesting comment too. Where does Goderich Street actually end and Highway 21 actually start? And I'll find that out one day. So my one concern is that the east side, that's our responsibility, and I believe we have an opportunity here to strategize that road should be improved and it should be upgraded as a connecting piece from a potential arterial road to the major highway. My next question is related to the west side and whether or not it is our intention to work a sidewalk plan in there at any time in the future. And if this is an opportunity, if we're already there with machinery and we're talking a significant change to this intersection, where's the complementary sidewalk plan that would show that we're actually going to start connecting independent grocers all the way down to Home Hardware with sidewalk on the west side? And two others, pedestrian lighting. So my comment through you, Mr. Mayor, to the CAO would be, is there a way we can increase the standard on single line diagrams like this? These are great if you're a draftsperson or if you're an engineer and if you're an architect, but where's the 2016 version with the little cars on the road that you can actually see and the little lights showing the downward spray of light? Like, I mean, we can do better with modeling, can we not? Today, 3D modeling and I took courses in that. So I think that we should be able to do more with our reports in the future, looking for some better conceptual artists. So the last thing is the synchronization of this light with the other lights. So we know that we're now at Tomlinson, and we know that we're now going to be at Devonshire, and it won't be long before we're one at the 10th concession as well. So we're going to have to work on a synchronization plan for these lights as well. So is that something we should be expecting staff to say that they have addressed?
I think I want to answer a couple of those questions, and you can talk about synchronization. I think what we're really asking here for, you've got some really good suggestions, Neil, and some good questions about those capital improvements, but that's not what we're discussing right here. We're just asking for approval for when and for we need to put signals there to do that. So, I mean, when those this is not anything to do with rebuilding those roads. It's simply getting permission from the MTO to put signals there to meet their standards. When we go to rebuild those roads, those are very good questions, and I think all the council should then have the opportunity to speak to them. That's really not what we're talking about here tonight, though. You can talk about, I think it's pertinent that we talk about synchronization, though.
I can go back and start at
Sure.
one and work all the way through.
Yeah, just don't contradict me.
No. At some point we can upgrade Devonshire East. At this point, staff feel it's not necessary, as if we're looking at Wellington as a bypass. We already have Tomlinson, only a block away, which gets traffic further out of town before they're directed on. It's a wider road with full turning lanes. From our standpoint, it's the logical location. Okay, sidewalks on the west side. As part of the development heading west, there will be sidewalks on that street. Okay, there will be sidewalks all around this intersection. And as development happens, southerly and northerly of this intersection, the sidewalks will be added. However, if council decides they want them added sooner, then they can make that a budget line item. Okay. 3D modeling. Okay. We can gladly create conceptual plans if you use all wish. Okay. Just takes time, energy, and staffing. With the minimal staff we have right now, we decided not to go into any great detail on that information. Stay status quo. Okay. When it comes to synchronization of the traffic signals, right now we're trying to get the traffic signals approved for the location and configuration, and then we'll work on synchronization over the next few months.
I appreciate that, and with you, everything is great news. What I'd like to know, though, is how do I go about, is it a notice of motion to change a standard expectation then, and to budget for that standard expectation, that single line drawings are no longer the standard for this council, if I put it as a motion forward? Or does staff want to discuss about it offline and let me know how they really think about it?
Our CAO will speak to it.
Thank you very much for the question, through you, Mr. Mayor. I've noticed in the past two meetings, there are different levels of detail provided on drawings. It is something that the director has identified as a bit of a resource issue. However, I think that there is an opportunity for us to develop some options and report back to council, and we'll certainly do that.
Deputy Mayor Charbonneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to ask sort of a simple question of Len. We have to make this submission to the MTO for approval to install this signalization. Are we fairly confident that the MTO will approve signalization at Devonshire?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hope this doesn't go beyond what you said we can question, but there is some financial information included in the report. Is the cost at the level that it's at? Like, it's about $120,000 when you put the numbers together. That seems low from previous numbers we've seen for intersections. Is it because a lot of the road work has already been done on this stretch of the highway?
Our previous manager of engineering took the intersection into consideration when they rebuilt Goddard Street and put all the turning lanes and everything there. It's just changing some line markings, a couple islands, and then putting up the street lights themselves, traffic lights themselves.
Okay, any further questions? If there's not, then all in favor of the recommendation. Opposed, if any, that is carried. Back to our agenda. The next item on the agenda then is the Planning Development Staff Report, and it has to do with the site plan for 1931256 Ontario Inc., Grenville Estates, and our Manager of Development Services, Bart Toby, will present.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 1931256 Ontario Inc. owns the lands located north of Peel Street between Grey and Grenville Streets, as shown on the attached site plan. The land is currently vacant. The owner is proposing to construct a 52-unit residential development with an internal private road system that would, in the long term, be established as a condominium. In entering into the agreement, the owner has agreed to provide capital contributions to rebuild Grey and Grenville Streets to meet the town's standards. In providing the capital contributions for road construction, staff are recommending that the owner may be partially compensated for the installation of sanitary services on Grenville Street if future development on Grenville Street takes place. Staff are also recommending that the town pays for the extension of sanitary services along Grey Street at a cost of $18,490, since the developer is contributing the full cost of all other off-site improvements in the area, and that the developer does not benefit from the installation of sanitary services on Grey Street. The owner is also providing a capital contribution for the trail development in the area of $10,000. As part of the development, the owner is constructing a sidewalk from the southern edge of the property along the unopened lane to Peel Street, and is building a rail connection on the north boundary of the property that would connect Grey Street, all shown in the attached site plan. The owner is posting securities and ensure the completion of all site improvements. It is recommended that the town proceed with a site plan agreement, since the developer has paid the council contributions, deposits, the necessary securities associated with the agreement that executes the agreement. Financial impact. The $18,490 estimated cost for sanitary service on Grey Street should be the landowners in the area connected to the service on Gray Street after installation. This expenditure may be offset with the connection costs which attributed to those landowners.
Thank you, Bart. And the recommendation is that Council consider a bylaw to authorize a site plan agreement with 1931256 Ontario Incorporated to authorize the construction of a 52-unit residential development. Questions or comments? Councillor Matheson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Bart, this news to me about this lane that will be going through the southern edge to Peel Street. Will they be putting up fencing between the properties there?
No, there will not be.
There will not be.
No.
Why?
Partial fence is partway across the properties as it is, and it's just a short walkway. It'll have bollards at the end to keep vehicles out of it.
Is privacy for those properties taken into consideration? Do we put fencing along when we open up a laneway like that normally, or is that something that's left?
I think it depends on the situation, but in this case, I don't think we put it on there.
I don't know. I think the answer to that question is no. They don't normally contact.
Normally don't.
Homeowners would have had an opportunity to comment during any rezoning or any planning advisory meetings, and if those questions were raised, they could have been raised at that point. But normally we don't contact homeowners with site plan agreements.
That's correct.
Those are mostly technical agreements that staff develop.
Yes.
Finished? Okay. Vice Deputy Mayor Huber.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also have a question about that laneway. I want to first of all acknowledge that I think the developer responded to some initial questions about improving the streetscape on Gray and Grenville, because those are the public parts of the development. So I appreciate that there's a few more trees showing than there was in the original plan. I'm curious to know, though, that the $10,000 allocated for trail development, it's not in addition to what's shown. It's to pay for this little laneway and then the little extension on the unopened Peel Street, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. It doesn't make any sense to me why this laneway from basically a private development out to Peel Street is necessary, because, certainly once you get in there, those are private streets in there. What I would rather see that disappear from the plan. And when you look at the other side, the unopened portion of Adelaide, I said Peel, it's Adelaide, the proposed 2-meter wide stone dust trail sort of comes halfway and then goes into the project. I would see that as a greater opportunity to put that stone dust trail all the way down that unopened portion of Adelaide between Gray and Grenville, because then it becomes a route, to the soccer field and whatever. It doesn't make any sense to me why we would require basically a little trail from a public street into a private development when, it's, I don't know, I would rather that we go after doing the trail on the unopened portion of Adelaide to make a connector there, which I think would be, it's going to be used that way anyway. So, as Director of Community Services talks about goat trails, I think, if you did it sort of halfway down there, there would be a goat trail happen the rest of the way, because that's how people would move. So I'm just curious why that laneway is necessary on that one side, because it's basically, heading into public property or into private property. Why would we not encourage something on the other side, which would be a little bit greater use perhaps by everybody, both the people in the development and the rest of the community?
Yeah, I can answer There are some plans for the future expansion of that area. I know where you're referencing to, so that there will be a continuation. So the notion is that it will enable the residents living in the subdivision and accessibility down into the downtown core, to the drugstores, to the beach access points. So that is considered for future development as well.
And I completely get that. That's showing on here. It's the one shooting to the south out to Peel. Why is that even necessary? Why don't we just use whatever dollars would go into that and take the Adelaide Street one and push it further out towards Grenville? That makes more sense to me. Thanks.
I think there's some input here. It isn't finalized, so we'll see that. That's some input here, and we can go ahead. Councillor Munt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question to you, to the Director of Community Services, or to Bard. I get real concerned when I read a clause number 19 on page, there's no page numbers, but section, Schedule C, Site Development Requirements, section 19. It talks about 5% cash in lieu of parkland, and I guess my question is, in the 2004 Parks and Trails Master Plan, talks about a shortfall of about 2.7 hectares of land, or 7 acres of parkland shortfall for the community of Saugeen Shores. And I certainly would like to think this as being a community of green and growing with lots of trees, some park benches to go out and sit in amongst the development under some shade trees for a little leisurely stroll. And I'm just, my question is, when I see 5% parkland and dedication cash in lieu of parkland, that concerns me. It's the value of the land the day of the first permit is issued. So I don't know whether that land's worth $300,000, $500,000, or $1 million. No idea. If it's a $500,000 piece of property, it's $25,000 in lieu of parkland, which. And I realize the developer is contributing $10,000 for a trail, and I like that. But I see a whole lot of buildings, and I see very little, quote, green space included within the development. And this community for a lot of years drove a very, very hard bargain in terms of keeping parkland in a development. And I just hope this is not precedent setting, where we're not taking parkland for that area of the community. I know Helliwell's not that far away, but I guess my question is this, and this is to the Director of Community Services, to Bart. In terms of a high-level discussion negotiating with the developer, how was it decided that we decided to take 5% cash in lieu versus green space? Why did we decide that? According to the Parks and Trails Master Plan, we have a shortfall of about 7 acres of parkland. And over the last 10 years, my calculations, we have not added 7 acres of parkland. So why did we take the 5% cash, which might be $20,000, $30,000? I'm not sure the dollar amount. Do you know the dollar amount either?
Well, let's let her answer, Mike.
So, pardon me?
Let's let her answer.
Thank you. So my question then, Mr. Mayor, is why did we take the cash?
I can't answer that for you, Mike, right now. I didn't do the negotiations with that. I was assuming that it was cash and parkland we were getting, so I'd have to ask our Jay Posner on where that is. This is kind of...
Okay. Any further questions? All in favor of the recommendation? Opposed? That's carried. So 5 items on the agenda for Committee of the Whole information. Any questions on them? If not, then we have a report, an information report on water main servicing of the 8th concession, I think, or the 6th concession, and it's pretty self-explanatory of where we're on that. If there's any question, Councillor Minaj.
So this is the second or third or how many time go around on the same issue for the same people. We have residents in our community that cannot access water. That's a problem for me. It's a priority problem for me. We have a number here that says if I add those two numbers together, let's just say it's 30,000. So if we were to offer them 30-year repayment schedule, $1,000 a year for 30 years, we could give them water for $20 a week. I would like to see the chief financial officer add to this and say, what can we do with money for people that are in this situation? I remember the last time we discussed this, the then Director of Public Works, I looked at options for installing a tank in the location until such time as this is, if I'm not mistaken, this is hung up as well due to Bruce Road 25 changes. Certainly further development in that area would offset cost. I get that. So where's the temporary measure? I think I drew a drawing. I said we could install a tank at low cost. A Works truck could be parked there with water in it. We could pump town water into it at a cost. We could figure out those costs, and we could provide them with a line and a tap on the end. We got to do better than to continually say no. Thank you.
Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, my question was, it wasn't clear to me from this report if we are saying no. I mean, if only one property owner like Ms. Smith wants to do that, is that an option? I guess it isn't. I didn't know.
If council so chooses, it could be. However, it works out to be $30,000 a lot. At 11 properties, it's a $330,000 tally for their portion only. Part of the presentation last year, there was a large dollar figure attached to it as well.
Councillor Dave Matt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I agree with Councillor Minaj when he says that having people in our community who have no access to water is a crisis. I believe that it is. And the homes that are along this stretch of road, and I realize many of them declined to respond to the survey, and the ones that did respond weren't necessarily in favor of spending that kind of money. And the quote that we are giving them is the quote to put an entire septic and sanitary sewer and water system and rebuild that section of road down to the stoplights. Is that correct? The project is to reconstruct that whole road, right?
Correct.
So right behind where this property is, and many of those properties, we have the trailer park complex. Those people are hooked up to water. I was speaking with a contractor who works in the plumbing side of things. He said, yeah, you could rebuild that whole road for $300,000, or you could just put an underground boring pipe to the main that's 50 feet behind the house and connect them in. Like, there must be a cheaper way that we can run a hose under 4 feet of ground to connect these houses up to municipal water. Sure, they're not going to be on sewer, but we're only talking about yards here, away from where mains exist, without rebuilding the entire road. I understand that that's on the future forecast, the entire road, but these are people that live on the fringe of the urban center, and they can throw a stone to people who have water, municipal water. Is there not an easier way of doing this? Going in through the backyard and connecting into where the mains are, right in the backyard. They could run hoses across the ground, but that wouldn't work in the wintertime. But dig a trench and put hoses in and connect these people up. They have no water. They can't put a well in. The wells don't work. It's a rare dry section of Saugeen Shores. I just believe that with the proper will, there's a way to do this.
The mobile home park is a private development. the town's water main ends in front of Walmart. The homeowner has approached the owner of the mobile home park, and they will not let them hook on.
You know, we're not going to get an answer to this tonight other than, I mean, here's the report. These are the options, and I know some people that have drilled wells up there. This is an unusual situation. It's close to town. There are many places where you will be miles from water, and it becomes a lot more complicated when we start to pick winners and losers, that we're going to give it to this person and not that person who's 2.5 miles away from the closest main. So, and I don't, if there's a way to work it around it. We've done this in the past. I think we extended water all the way down to McGregor Point Park, where we polled those people 2 times. And finally, I think there was the last vote was about a 51-49, and council decided to go ahead. There's nothing to say we can't go ahead if you want and say, okay, we're going to, typically what we've done in the past, and then say everybody connects and everybody pays. That's the fair way of doing it, instead of picking winners and losers. And we did that in a number of places in the community over the years. So we've really set a really good precedent of that all the way along the shore from Southampton to Port Elgin at one time. None of that was serviced, and we extended it, saying, here it is. One of the other options, and I don't, if council wishes to decide, is to make an application through us, is pick this as an OSIFA project. And, we picked the north of the Saugeen River for our sewer and water project. That was one of the biggest in our history, and we're awarded it, where it was a third provincial, a third federal, and a third the benefiting property owners, and it worked very well. And you see, that's very successful. But I really sympathize with people. Absolutely, I do, because I'm on a well, and days like this summer, I threaten about wonder. And we've offered a solution to those people, and you have one person that was really willing to, 1 of 5. Now, that's not 1 of 11, but so it puts us in a pretty difficult position of saying, okay, what are we going to do? And, I kind of sympathize with your solution, Neil, but supplying domestic water to people needs to meet some pretty strict provincial standards, and I would not support something that will not meet those, because we have a duty. We've had some training on that, a duty to ensure that water is safe. And so okay. So anyways, it's an information report. If we've got some good suggestions, then I think bring them back. But to me, it's a difficult situation, and I don't know how you get around it unless you're willing to force it on 11 people. Okay. Our agenda then. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Madison and Deputy Mayor Charbonneau. So adjourn for 10 minutes.